One of the last remaining shows of the anti-hero boom that dominated the last decade of television is Ozark, returning this month for its third season. The Netflix original series starring Jason Bateman follows the Bird family, who launder money for a Mexican drug cartel.
Or do you want to just role play it? Okay, I'm Detective whoever the and you're the wife of the top money launderer for the second largest drug cartel in Mexico. Go.
To appease the cartel after a partner gets caught stealing, the family is forced to move to the Ozarks in order to wash even more money. There, they have to deal with angry locals, a farm-based heroin operation, and obviously, the FBI. Bateman plays our main character, Marty, a man constantly searching for ways to clean money while keeping his family together. For a show ostensibly about accounting, it's pretty intense. What's wild about Ozark is that it's an anti-hero show built by the guy who might have been picked last in the Difficult Man draft. Yeah, this guy.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
But Ozark works because of Bateman's brilliance, and not just as an actor. Bateman also serves as a director for the show, and the key to Ozark's success might just come down to how those two roles blend together on screen. Now, to explore this dynamic, there will be some spoilers up to the first episode of Season 2. I'm Jackson, and this is Jason Bateman's Brilliance. It's hard not to think of Ozark as Michael Bluth meets Walter White. That somehow Michael has finally gotten the Bluth company in the black by turning it into a massive money laundering scheme, and now is on the run with Sally Sitwell. But it quickly becomes clear that Ozark isn't just something that Netflix spit out when looking at the cross-section of people who watched both Breaking Bad and Arrested Development.
Always money in a banana stand.
It's a little jarring to see Bateman in such a serious role. You'd think that he'd be a little out of his depth on a show as dark and serious as Ozark, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In some ways, Marty Byrde is the exact kind of character you'd expect Bateman to be playing. He's uptight and plays the straight man in a room full of volatile people. Back in Arrested Development, those people did the chicken dance.
A total do it. That's what I was just telling him.
In Ozark, those people throw you off a building or rip out your eyeballs.
What do you want me to do with them? Save them for a rainy day.
And this straight man act makes Bateman a perfect fit for the part. Marty is constantly avoiding disaster by the skin of his teeth. The show starts with him finding out about two separate betrayals. His partner Bruce has stolen $8 million from the cartel, and his wife has been cheating on him. And from there, things get worse. In order to save his family's life, Marty uses a bad timeshare pitch to convince the cartel to let them move to the Ozarks, where he says they'll be able to launder even more money.
More shoreline than the whole coast of California.
Excuse me.
The only problem is that he has to leave the Chicago suburbs and move to the Ozarks, and that he has to pump millions of dollars into rundown businesses without anyone noticing. All while the cartel looms, ready to kill him for even the slightest misstep. Still, Marty never panics.
He has no reason to kill us.
I don't think that he will. Why would he?
This is a cornerstone of Bateman's approach to acting, telling Daily Actor in 2019 that he's, quote, always been attracted to playing a normal person that is in the middle of something that is pretty abnormal, so that what you're witnessing is as relatable as possible. We might not all be able to imagine what it's like being simultaneously threatened by a Mexican drug cartel, bloodthirsty heroin farmers, and armed locals trying to steal our money. But Bateman roots us in the more relatable aspects of the story, trying to make ends meet, managing family and work, and moving somewhere for a new job.
They take new jobs, they relocate with their families all the time. You know, this country was built by Americans pursuing opportunity.
The thrill of Ozark is in watching problems emerge one after another all around Marty, and then figuring out how he's going to wiggle his way out. He's already got all 10 fingers and toes in the dike, but he needs to find something else to plug a brand new hole that's popped up. Marty does all of this while keeping his calm and trying to keep up the illusion of control. And while his character is doing that on screen, Bateman is doing the exact same thing behind the camera. It's hard to overstate how much Ozark is Bateman's baby. He stars in it, is one of the 5 executive producers, and has directed more episodes of the series than anyone else. Directors are often noticed for showcasing big action sequences, or coming up with creative and innovative camera movements. On television, it's even harder to stand out, since you need to fit into a pre-existing style of a show. So it was a little weird that in a field saturated with lens flare, CGI dragons, and an Academy Award nominee, the Emmy for Best Directing went to
Jason Bateman.
Ozark.
Him?
But directing really comes down to uniting a piece under a distinct vision and voice, and using that style to show the audience what is important. That might sound like some film school mumbo-jumbo, but all it really means is that in a project where hundreds of different people are contributing creatively, a good director brings all of that work together to seem like one mind working towards one goal. And you can feel this kind of cohesiveness when you watch Ozark, and specifically Bateman's episodes. Every frame in Ozark is desaturated and cold, feeling as hopeless and desperate as the Bird family does. The camera is steady and deliberate, invoking a Fincher-esque creep into each character's psyche as we follow them down into the depths of despair. In moments of escalating tension, the camera gets almost imperceptibly shaky, implying a repression of the fear bubbling beneath the surface. Bateman also frames characters in a way where you know exactly whose side they're on. Check out this simple scene from his award-winning episode that starts season 2.
So guys, this is the new baseline, okay? We're gonna build normal from here.
So we're out of danger?
Yes, but everything from now on needs to be about keeping it that way.
Which means we need 100% honesty, like our lives depend on it. You understand that?
Yeah.
Marty and Wendy are framed together, and the kids separately. This makes sense. Marty and Wendy are keeping secrets from their children, but their children are also keeping secrets from them. Marty then walks over to get his coffee, and we see him framed opposite the rest of his family. One more layer of secrecy.
Is everything okay? Total honesty.
He's not telling them everything, even Wendy. We can see the hierarchy of secrets and relationships, even down to Jonah and Buddy's friendship in the background. Or take this scene from the end of the episode where Marty and Wendy try to convince their partners to pay reparations to the cartel.
I take it they didn't give you clear guidelines.
What about $4 million?
Darlene Snell leaves the table in anger, and for the rest of the scene, she remains out of focus, behind her husband, Jacob. Even when she talks, it happens off camera, as if she's the puppet master pulling the strings.
I'd pay for any misunderstanding in perpetuity.
It's weakness.
On the other side of the table, the camera shows the Bird family strategy for negotiation. They provide a united front, framed together. As Jacob also walks away from the table, Wendy follows him to make an emotional appeal. Everything is very still, until it isn't. The camera whips around, directing the audience on levels of importance. First, the act, then Marty and Wendy's reaction, then the brutality and sacrifice that Jacob is making, before finally settling on the aftermath. The camera shocks us as much as the action does, without ever losing sight of what's important in the scene, rooting it in our characters. To plan all of this out in a scene where you're also acting is some high-level stuff. And there's a reason only a handful of people have even tried to direct something they star in.
Knowing that that I'm doing more than just the acting on it, I'm
sorry, just the acting?
Easy stuff.
Juggling this many ideas is what makes Bateman's performance and the show itself work so well. Both Bateman and Marty are problem-solving every moment, accounting for the other actors, whether those are the literal actors that Bateman is directing or the criminal actors in Marty's work. Behind the Marty Bird mask, Bateman is juggling dozens of decisions every take, making mental notes and trying to stitch together the final piece in real time.
because I know I'll be in the editing room and I'll be able to kind of make sure I steal that look, which means I don't have to lean into that line, or I can cut that line and I'll play it with a little bit
nice.
right instead.
Must be nice.
The editing room, okay. Now,
Geppetto and Pinocchio.
And if any of that process of calculating bleeds into his performance as Marty, all the better, since that's exactly what Marty is doing at all times. Marty is constantly trying to direct and control every aspect of his life, even as his decisions cause ripple effects and lead to more problems he has to solve. More than any other show on TV, you can actually see the directing at work in Ozark. And not just because you can physically see the director. Bateman's performance as Marty and his directing style blend so fully that it's impossible to miss Marty directing his life and, by extension, Bateman directing the scene. Ozark isn't Bateman's first dip into TV directing. He directed about 10 sitcom episodes from 1989 to 2004, but the nature of directing on TV has changed drastically in the past 10 years. There's been an undeniable shift towards directing in what has traditionally been considered a writer's medium. Starting in 2014 when Cary Fukunaga directed the entire first season of True Detective, we've seen more and more directors take on the challenge of directing a full series. Jean-Marc Vallée took on both Big Little Lies and Sharp Objects. David Lynch revived Twin Peaks, and Sam Esmail directed a whopping 39 out of Mr. Robot's 46 episodes. In fact, when he was initially approached to star in Ozark, Bateman wanted to follow in this tradition and asked to direct every episode.
Ultimately, I could only end up doing the first two and the last two because of time.
Where television has traditionally been a writer's medium, directors are now being allowed to put their thumb on the scale even more, shaping TV with their own voice. Shows are now more ambitious with their technical flourishes, and are getting the due respect for their amazing cinematography.
But also the cinematography.
Oh, the cinematography is incredible.
I love cinematography.
TV is also increasingly becoming a place where directors can make a name for themselves. Rian Johnson jumped from directing episodes of Breaking Bad and Terriers in 2010 to Looper in 2012, and then returned to Breaking Bad to direct the iconic 2013 episode OZYMANDIAS before being catapulted to The Last Jedi and Knives Out. Taika Waititi jumped from Flight of the Conchords and The Inbetweeners to What We Do in the Shadows and Thor Ragnarok. This kind of launching pad is an undeniably good thing because TV has become much more of a sandbox for bigger risks. In 2019, half of all TV episodes were directed by women or people of color, injecting fresh voices and new talent into the media landscape. There was a time when TV was the place actors and writers were laid to rest, like Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But those days are long gone. Nowadays, TV is actively becoming an exciting playground where we might find the next breakout star, visionary, or a bold new choice from a veteran filmmaker. And this is all especially impressive in the case of Bateman, who has done all of this while carrying the largest acting role on his show. At the same time, his directing has already expanded to HBO, where he directed and starred in the first 2 episodes of The Outsider. Those 2 episodes lived in the space between the real and the supernatural, using the techniques Bateman honed on Ozark, like cold, hopeless lighting, and a camera that feels like it's creeping into the souls of its characters as they feel an existential threat loom around them. In the context of a horror thriller, Bateman's style of being a normal person in the middle of something pretty abnormal took on new meaning, making it unclear whether his character was innocent or guilty, and capturing that fear of the unexplainable. As TV directing grows more in the public consciousness, take the time to appreciate someone who's able to blend his acting and directing together to create a seriously intense show. Yeah, this guy.
I feel shocked.